Greetings. Auspicious greetings. Thank you all for joining us for this April's Thank Buddha It's Friday TBIF special Dharma talk. Before we start, please make sure your microphone is muted and your video is on if possible, as a way to show our respect to our guest speaker. Also, as she gives her talk, you might, if a question arises for you, write it up in the chat and we'll get to it at the end where the Q&A. It is our honor to have Venerable Zhi Yu spend time with us tonight as she shares her topic with us on her talk entitled Trash Talk, a Buddhist Perspective on Waste Management.
So hello, everyone. Is there anything else that our moderator would like to add, or should I begin from there?
Nothing more. Thank you for being with us. We're very honored. And that is a very interesting title to your talk.
Thank you very much, Denny, for the introduction. And thank you, Venerable Miao Zhang, for inviting me to be with you all today. So according to Venerable Miao Zhang, we would first begin with a short sitting meditation session. If you can, please find a spot that is comfortable. Ideally, have both of your feet flat on the floor, or if you would like, you can also cross your legs. Just make sure that you feel nice and comfortable, and also be sure to sit up straight. And we're going to slowly close our eyes and do a body scan. So let us first begin with our feet. Relax our feet. Relax our leg muscles. Relax our spine. We will start from the bottom of the spine and relax and go up each vertebrae and relax. Next, relax your shoulders. Relax your neck. Relax your hands. Relax your face muscles. Relax your forehead. Feel your entire body relaxing. And begin to put your focus on the tip of your nose and just focus on our breathing. So begin to slowly rub your palms of your hands together and place them over your eyes before opening your eyes once again. And feel yourself refreshed and ready to listen to the Dharma talk. Okay, so let me begin to share screen with all of you. Okay, are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
All right, great.
Looks good.
Just hold on. I have too many Zoom screens on my computer. Let me just reorganize everything. All right, so let us begin. First of all, like I mentioned before, it's an honor to be here. And today is Friday for everyone. So I'm very grateful to have all of you here today on Friday evening to join us for this trash talk. So today's topic is a Buddhist perspective on waste management. And you might be thinking, this is a very interesting topic. In fact, when Venerable Miao reached out to me a couple of days ago, I think she was a little bit concerned about the number of people who registered because it's a very different topic than the norm for a Buddhist talk, but please bear with me. The reason why I decided to choose this particular topic was because of the environmental theme. And April is when we celebrate Earth Day. So very nicely, we have April in celebration of Earth Month. So just last week, we celebrated Earth Day, and I thought it would be a very good way to end the month of April, which is Earth Month, with a talk about how to deal with the trash in our life. And why talk about trash? Why trash talk? Well, trash is not exactly the most pleasant of things. If we were to talk about more traditional environmental topics, we might talk about recycling and planting trees or vegetarianism. These seem like all pretty, relevant topics to environmentalism. But why talk about trash? Well, there's something so universal about trash. Not everyone in society would be a vegetarian. Not everyone practices planting trees, but every one of us in most societies produce some sort of trash, and we do it every day in our daily life. So no matter if you're a child, if you're old, if you're a man, you're a woman, at some point in your life, you have produced trash, and it's in our homes. And sometimes we might wonder, why do I have so much trash? Where is this coming from? In fact, I think this is a universal experience, even for me in Taiwan. We have to deal with trash. And for you guys in the United States, you also have to deal with trash all the time as well. Just last night, I was going through the news and I saw a video about a South Korean researcher. And his specialization was to study the North Koreans. And we know that North Korea has been in the news quite often. And so this Korean professor, the South Korean professor, is unable to go to North Korea to do his research because of the pandemic. So what he ended up doing was he went to the shore of the beach and collected North Korean trash that washed ashore to South Korea. And from this, by studying the trash, he could understand what kind of society North Korea was. And believe it or not, North Korea does have snacks and refreshment bottles. But from the wording of the packaging, we can see that it is a very patriarchal society. We can see that some of the resources, they are lacking. And so we can learn a lot about a person from the trash that we throw out. So now I ask all of you, if someone were to come and research our trash, what would they find? What would they discover about us? And so by examining our trash, we can learn more about what we do in our daily life and what is happening in our minds. And so for today, we will explore some of the ways to get our trash under control. So to begin, why am I interested in this topic? Well, it all started with some grapes. Over a decade ago, I was in college studying marketing or why people buy things. So it was my job to make sure people were interested in buying and spending their money. So one day, in our shared kitchenette amongst our classmates, I was about to throw out some trash when I discovered something in there. I see a bag of packed grapes in a plastic bag in there, and to me, it looked perfectly fine. My first reaction was to wonder, what's wrong with these grapes? Is it poisoned? Is it rotting? But curiosity got the best of me, and so I decided to take out this bag of grapes. And of course, I looked around to make sure that no one was looking at me, because after all, who wants to be seen digging through the trash? And so I noticed that these grapes looked perfectly fine, but on the plastic bag, there was an expiration date, which happened to be the day that I had picked up the grapes. So one of my classmates has decided that this grape was no longer worthy of being eaten because it was quote unquote expired. But using my senses, I decided that these grapes were perfectly fine. They were not blemished at all. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to wash this and eat it. And of course, I was quite worried at that time whether I would be poisoned, but alas, I am still sitting here over 10 years later and giving a Dharma talk to you all. So this entire process gave me an inspiration to think about, why do people throw things away? Instead of thinking about why people buy things, but why do people throw things away? And as a monastic, I began to look into its relevance to Buddhism. So there are a couple of questions that I would like to share with you in this process of discovering and examining our trash. The first has to do with our perception. How do we usually perceive trash? I can ask all of you. When you hear the word trash or when you see trash, how do you feel? What are some words that come into your mind? So in my example, when I was going through the trash for the grapes, I had to look around to make sure that nobody was looking at me because it was something shameful. It was something dirty. So most people have this notion that trash, we associate it with something that's like pollution, something that has little value, worthless, or something that is dirty, unsanitary, smelly, dangerous, and filth. So when I began to do my research in college about trash, people were not very supportive at first. And they were thinking, why would you do something on something so unsanitary and so dirty? Are you really going to dig through the trash of other people, which I did, to do your research? And so people have this negative impression of trash. And this is exactly why I decided to put this as the title of my talk. You're probably wondering, trash talk? This is not the Dharma. This is just trash. Why are we talking about something so useless? In fact, if we go to the dictionary, which I'm going to do right now, we can look up the Oxford Dictionary to see how it defines trash. So I'm going to do that. Okay. As you can see here, discarded matter or refuse, and if we look at example sentences, it's very interesting. Bacteria and fungi, this associated, diseased and infected with insects discarded in the trash. We have things that were torn and dirty, filled with trash, burned up, things that are, taken out, receipts and carbons, and we can even liken relationships, people to trash and discard, etc. And then we also think of cultural items or ideas of poor quality as trash. If they read it at all, they read trash. And in fact, we also use it as a slang. We consider people of very low social standing trash. So as you can see from this, the way that we view trash is quite negative. We don't view it in a positive manner. So if it's so negative and something that we don't like, where does it come from? If we don't like trash, why do we keep producing it? In fact, in our office here in Taiwan, we have something called our office duty. So the venerables and also the ladies in our department take turns to take out the trash from our pantry. And oftentimes the person on duty would often ask, how is it that we are producing so much trash? I could have sworn I took it out yesterday and now I return to see the bag already half full. Where is it coming from? So the question is, where does your trash come from? When you take out your trash bags to the curb, think about it. We don't like it, but we keep producing it. Ultimately, trash comes from desire. What kind of desire is it? Is desire for happiness, something that we all want. We often buy things because we think that it will make us happy. So even though we want to be happy, we don't do it in a very skillful way. We often chase external things for happiness. And because of external things, it doesn't really give us that fulfillment that we desire. So we keep trying to seek out more things to help us make us happy. For example, we think that if I buy something, it will associate with our self-identity. For example, if I buy these particular clothes, I will look good in them, so it will make me happy. In fact, we desire some sort of self-affirmation or a sense of belonging, and we do that oftentimes unskillfully through pursuing objects. In fact, for example, something as prevalent as a cell phone or a mobile phone, a smartphone, people identify as being Android users or Apple users. Or simple as a computer, you have people who identify as being a Windows user or a Mac user. So we think, oh, Mac users, they tend to be more creative and they're probably doing some sort of graphic design and film. As for the Windows user, probably they're more traditional. And so we tend to identify these objects with parts of our personality or sense of self. And we buy things because we like it. We like the color, we like the products. For example, when we choose laundry detergent or shampoo, we like the smell. So a lot of what we buy comes from desire. And also, well, what happens when these things no longer accomplish what we desire? We throw it away because of our desire for convenience. We think that throwing it away will make it easier to deal with, and we think that it will make us happy. But when exactly does an object become trash? So for example, the grape that was in the trash bin, that I discovered in the kitchenette, is it really trash? When did it get designated as trash? Is it the moment that it is taken away? Or is it the moment that it enters the trash can? Or does it become trash when we throw it out? What happens is that the transformation of an object that becomes trash happens in our minds. It's a transformation of a designation. For example, the grape itself did not change. But at what moment did it suddenly become, oh, so dirty, not worthy of being eaten? When did it begin to have this label? So there is a transformation that takes place from something that we view as desirable to something that we view as rejected. Something that was new and now is old. Something that we thought was clean and now is dirty. A lot of these labels are things that happen in our mind that we give to objects. So I would also like to share with you a story about our shigu. So shigu are sort of ladies who live in the monastery with us. They practice monastic living, but they also have hair. They also have duties like a lay person as well. So this shigu, she has a very interesting habit, which is to collect the jars and packagings that we throw out in our office. And she likes to put it in one of the boxes for us to use. So to her, it's not trash. To her, it's very valuable. But sometimes other people might complain and say, why are you collecting all of these useless plastic bottles and boxes and things like that? Well, for some people, it might be trash, but for her, it still contains value. So is this thing really trash or not? It really depends on who is perceiving it. And it happens in the mind of the beholder. So the next question is, how do we deal with this trash? Obviously, now that we know it happens in the mind, I don't expect everyone to say, oh, I love trash. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Let's keep all of it. That's not what I'm saying. But usually what we do is we end up partaking in a ritual where we put it in black plastic bags. Well, at least in the United States, the most common color for plastic bags for trash is black. And there is a particular reason for that, because we don't like to see the trash. We don't want to be reminded of the trash. So we don't use clear bags. We just don't want to see it. And the color black shields everything away from our eyes. And we take it outside. We don't want to be reminded of it. The dumpster truck comes and takes it away, and we repeat the cycle all over again. The question is, where exactly did this object that we deemed to be unsanitary, to be not useful, where does it go? So I'm sure that most of us has taken out the trash sometime this week. So I ask you right now, at this very moment, where is that trash or that packaging that you've thrown out? We don't really know. Where exactly does the trash go? We just send it away. We don't want to look at it. And then it goes somewhere. It's not something that we usually think about. And it often shows our ignorance. We don't really know how our things come to be. And we don't really know where it goes. The trash disappears from our home. It's out of our sight. But it doesn't really disappear. It's still somewhere out there in the world. This trash, even though we have cleaned our house, it still needs to go somewhere. So oftentimes it ends up in the landfill, or other processes is people might incinerate it. So either way, this trash, that came out of a decision that we make, it's still somewhere on this corner of this earth. And we just let other people deal with our trash. We don't want to see it, so we send it elsewhere. Other people can take care of it. But the question is, who bears the consequences? Obviously, the oceans and the planet bear the consequences. Other people who work with trash or people who live near landfills also have to bear with it. Also, our future generations, our children also bear the consequences. We also bear the consequences because we are also part of the planet. So what we once thought was so great and desirable, it becomes discarded, refused. And this entire process, if we examine it closely, shows a lot of interesting habits that we make in our mind. It shows us the decisions that we make. It shows us that every little thing, including what we put into the trash, has real consequences, but we don't see it. We don't think about it. So here I would like to offer you a few ways, better ways to deal with trash. So in Humanistic Buddhism, we don't advocate everyone become, a minimalist or an ascetic practitioner or eradicate all desire altogether. Of course, as living human beings in society, we're going to produce some amount of trash. However, there's a better way that we can deal with it instead of mass producing all this waste. The first thing is we can reduce our desire. So we can use only what we need and not what we want. Of course, for example, because in Taiwan, in Guang Shan headquarters, we try to be environmentally friendly. And so most of the monastics here, we have a thermal bottle where we have a water bottle, which is a way for us to cut down on plastic waste. But then something occurs. I begin to have more and more thermal bottles being gifted to me. And I ask myself, all right, something that I wanted for environmental purposes, I need a water bottle, but do I really need 5 of them? Or for example, in your everyday life, you need clothing. Clothes are nice, they're useful. Perhaps you can keep one or a few for each type of occasion. But if we just keep it coming in, if we just keep purchasing it, then it becomes an issue. So at what point is our need fulfilled? And at what point does it just become desire, plain desire and plain want? So the first thing that we can do is learn to reduce our desire for new objects. And then the second one is we can repurpose and find new creative uses or find a new home for it. We can upcycle it. We can transform it into something using our creativity. We can gift an object to other people to find a new home for it. And then, of course, if the above doesn't work, we can try to recycle it and transform it into a new product instead of going into the landfill. So here, I want to share with you 2 sites that you can use to repurpose your trash. The first one is called Upcycle That. And if you go onto the site, you can type in what you have. For example, if I have plastic bag, okay, you can say you have a bunch of plastic bags. It will give you different ideas on what you can do to repurpose your plastic bags. And there's this whole DIY thing. And you can go into like things that you want to make, things you want to use based on products. So this is the first thing that you can do before throwing it out. You can think about the different ways that you can transform it, this product, seemingly trash, into something more beneficial. The second one is something called Free Cycle. And sometimes we have extra items or things we no longer need that are still perfectly useful. So we can send it to other people, and people who might want other things can also post. For example, they might need something and they say, okay, does anyone have a bookshelf? And if you just happen to have a bookshelf lying around that you no longer need, you can go and trade it. So this is something that you can look into. There's a San Diego group, and all parts of the US have this. So these are also ways that we can deal with our trash. Now, from what we discussed before, trash is very much a mental process. We like to designate things as being clean and then things as being dirty, things as being useful and then not useful. So take, for example, when we're eating, new food on the plate, we often view it as being clean. However, 10 minutes after eating, maybe we decided that there was something we didn't like or there's something extra. And then we put it into the compost because we're environmentally friendly, right? We don't put it in the trash. But the way that we view compost or the way that we view our food when it goes into the bin, we start acting more carefully around it. We don't really want to touch it anymore. There's no real material change in the food itself, chemically speaking, or it's objectively speaking, there's no change. But what happens is in our minds, we begin to associate it with different characteristics. And I'm talking about our own food here, not like food from other people's plates, our own food. So for example, the past couple of days in the monastery, we had a cooking seminar. And in our cooking seminar, we had to deal with a lot of peeled potatoes, peeled carrots, etc. So we take all of these peels and we put it into a bin and designate someone to kind of sort through it and take it to the compost. However, the feeling that we have while digging through these peels is quite different than when we are eating the food on our plates. However, the carrot itself has not changed. The potato itself has not changed. And yet our behavior has changed because of our minds. We have reclassified the item as being something, quote unquote, contaminated or unattractive or something shameful. However, because of this, we can also retrain our mind to think differently about trash. So for example, Shigu, who picks up the plastic bottles from the trash, she is reclassifying it. She's saying that this is not trash. This is perfectly useful. We can put other things into these containers. So in a way, if we train our minds, then we can also look at our trash differently. So Venerable Master, my teacher, has a quote about true environmental preservation. He says, environmental preservation usually takes place externally, yet internally, the purity of the mind is the greatest environmental preservation. Because Buddhism believes the establishment of the notion of environmental preservation should start from the human mind. And I think this is quite apt because based on what we have discussed, the main issue is not with the trash itself. It begins with the way that we think. It begins with our mind. Now, I've spent roughly 25 minutes talking about trash, and you're thinking, well, okay, we talked a lot about physical trash. But now I would like to let you know that this trash is actually a metaphor for the afflictions in our mind. So actually, in this entire process, where it seems like we were talking about physical trash, it's actually an examination of our mind. The way that we deal with trash is the way that we also deal with our mind. So for example, my teacher, Venerable Master, Xing Yun, he produces very little trash if you have been with him. He's very frugal. In his youth, he collected pieces of scrap paper to write on it. And even if it's been written all over, he would use another color ink and write over it again. He saves tissues to reuse them over and over again. So what does this show about Venerable Master's habits? He doesn't view things as trash. In fact, he produces very little of it because in his mind, it still has value. In his mind, things have value. People have value. So when we look back at ourselves, it's not to say that we have to purify our minds by getting rid of the afflictions, but we have to make sure that we're producing very little of it in the first place. So let's examine a little bit about afflictions as our mental trash. Where does this affliction come from? So like the question that we mentioned before, where does this trash come from? Where does affliction come from? Likewise, it also comes from our desire. A lot of the suffering that we cause ourselves is self-inflicted because we desire ourselves to be a certain way. We desire things to be in a certain way. We make the distinctions between right and wrong, good or bad, clean and dirty, and we attach to it. So this dualistic thinking hinders us, and we associate happiness with something external. But because of this, we end up creating a lot of afflictions that are unnecessary. And oftentimes, out of convenience, we indulge in quick external happiness instead of real joy that comes within. For example, okay, I'm just going to watch this new television series. It's going to make me so happy. And then we think it's going to make us so happy. It's quick. I turn on the TV, I watch it, bam, I have a serotonin boost. However, once that TV show ends, so does our happiness because it's something external. So instead of finding something that's real, something that we need to work to discover inside us, we tend to like things that are more convenient, packaged happiness, so we think. So how do we usually perceive these afflictions that we produce? We don't really like it. We never say, I love my afflictions. I'm going to embrace my afflictions. We don't do that because like the way that we look at trash, we tend to perceive our afflictions as unpleasant, harmful, as negative. And how do we usually deal with them? We don't really want to think about it. We want to distract ourselves. We use methods to try and forget about it. Sometimes we might blame other people for our afflictions. We might deny the issues at hand. But who bears the consequences of our afflictions? For example, when we're frustrated or when we're angry, we might blame it on other people because we dislike being vulnerable. So in the entire process, other people are also harmed. Other people have to deal with our mental trash. Other people, for example, the children around us, our family members, our friends. Oftentimes, we put a lot of our afflictions out there because we don't want to see it. We don't want to deal with it. And we harm other people. And because of this, we also harm ourselves as well. So what are some better ways for us to deal with this mental trash or deal with affliction? Well, first, we need to embrace afflictions, to see it for what it really is. It's not to say that we should keep producing afflictions or keep producing trash, but I think we need to have the courage in order to examine its real nature, not to think of it as shameful. The first thing we can do is to reduce desire, to reduce our aversion, to reduce our ignorance, and in that way, we will produce fewer afflictions in the first place. Now, what happens if we do end up having afflictions? Are we just really stuck with it? Do we send it away? So like trash, we can also choose to repurpose and recycle our afflictions. For example, desire and anger is something that we usually think of as being harmful and destructive. However, we can use it, we can transform it into some sort of compost. We can transform it into the direction of good. We can use it in an empowering way. For example, desire. Oftentimes, people want a good reputation. Now, if we don't do it wisely, it can be harmful as we chase for money and wealth, fame and fortune. But that exact same desire to leave a legacy, we can transform it into something that is beneficial. We can desire to be more compassionate. We can desire to want to touch people's lives. So this becomes the energy or the source in which we do our cultivation. Another example is anger or aversion. So sometimes, especially nowadays in society, there are many things that we see happening that we think it angers us. There's a sense of injustice. How could it be like this? However, if we don't use it wisely, if we don't transform it, we won't use it in a very productive way. For example, if we lash out onto others because of anger, if we are violent towards others, then it's not beneficial. However, that same energy, being angry, we can transform it so that we ensure people don't experience the same injustice. Again, we can use it as the energy for advocacy. And so we can see that this desire and anger has been transformed into something useful, something productive. In the Platform Sutra, there's a saying, affliction is Bodhi. So if we were to liken affliction to trash, we can't just say, oh, well, trash is gold, trash is money. It's great, so I will just leave trash around. I will indulge in it. No, the key here is transformation. Without the transformation, trash is still harmful. Without the transformation, affliction is still harmful. However, when transformed, it can become the nutrient or the energy or the source in which our cultivation, our wisdom grows. It becomes the nutrient for Bodhi or enlightenment. And this entire process of transformation, the transformation of physical trash takes creativity. The transformation of mental trash takes wisdom. So I urge everyone not to look at affliction or mental trash as simply affliction. We need to understand the nature of it, to understand where it comes from, and not to see it as something that's simply unpleasant. For example, we like lotuses, but we need to remember that without the mud, there is no lotus. For the mud is the nutrient in which it grows. So affliction can be the nutrient for our Bodhi wisdom. However, if we don't know how to use it, if we don't know how to use mud, we just have a pile of mud. We can have a pile of mud and nothing will ever grow from it because we don't know how to use it. But if we have the wisdom to see it for what it is, then we can grow something very beautiful out of that mud. So the lotus is able to transform the mud, something we feel is dirty or impure, into something that is pure without being attached to it. So I hope that after this brief talk, we can re-examine the physical and mental trash in our life, and to truly uphold the spirit of Earth Month by not only taking care of our physical trash, but the mental trash as well. So we not only clean and purify the environment in which our body lives in, but we also purify the environment of our mind. In the Vilamakirti Sutra, there's a quote, "If one wants to be in a pure land, one should purify the mind. When the mind is pure, the land is pure." And I ask you, what is pure and what is impure? What is clean and what is dirty? What does it mean to purify the mind? It's not a separation of this is pure and this is impure, this is clean and this is dirty. The pure land in which we live in is not a separation. It's not made out of dualistic thinking, but rather a transformation of the things that we think are impure, the things that we view as dirty or unpleasant, and transform it using wisdom. And if we're able to do that, there is no longer the duality between impurity and purity, and that is true Pure Land. So thank you very much for listening to this trash talk. I hope that it has become a Bodhi talk for you after this transformation. Thank you very much, and I hope that may all your trash become Bodhi. This concludes my talk, and we will have roughly about 10 minutes for Q&A. Thank you very much.